Remember my recent tree video where I showed you how to make this tree? Well, today I want to make this a little bit more solid and to create a terrain base for this to permanently be fixated on. Here's what we're going to need. Obviously our tree, some XPS foam for the base, a water and Mod Podge solution that we're going to make on camera, some good old-fashioned dirt from my backyard, aquarium rocks from a fish tank aquarium, toilet paper, and a variety of acrylic paints like this one. The technique that I'm using in this video is based on something I saw on my friend Euler Workshop's channel, which is centered around using toilet paper to create terrain. After taking a visit to my scrap heap, I found a 1/2-inch piece that suits my needs, then I use my Proxxon to cut it out. I want this base to have beveled edges, so after sizing up where I want the tree to sit, I go ahead and use a box cutter to cut down those sides and have a gradual bevel on them. I don't want the base to have any sharp edges, so I try to progressively increase the angle as I go up the piece, but also keep in mind that I have to place the tree here reliably on the base. Here's how my carved up base is looking, and so far I'm pretty happy with the results. Next thing I'm going to do is use some low temperature hot glue to permanently bond the tree to the XPS foam base. I want to make sure that all the roots are in the exact places I want them to be. Now it's time to mix that water and Mod Podge solution. I just eyeball this mixture. There are no measurements that I follow when I'm doing this kind of thing. Now that the solution's ready, it's time to have some fun. Place the toilet paper where you want it to be, get a paintbrush, and put some Mod Podge water solution over top of the entire thing. I do this with a dabbing motion, and I'm using single ply toilet paper here, so it's easy to tear, which is why the dabbing motion is really kind of an important part of this. But honestly, if you get any tears, all you have to do is put another layer of toilet paper over top and do the same thing over, and you'll fix that mistake. Personally, I like to add several layers of the toilet paper on top of each other to add to the stability, and also I think it kind of helps mimics the root systems of plants in the terrain base, which is really going to look cool. I'm also careful to make sure that I get all of the edges. I want the same texture throughout the whole piece to really mimic the dirt terrain that we're going for here. And I do pay specific attention to the areas around the roots. This is where you can really blend the tree into the ground and make it look like it belongs there. See what I mean about the root systems? It really looks like there's a lot of different plants in this one compact area. This next part requires dry dirt, but unfortunately it was raining outside when I was doing this project, but I did happen to have some handy from my backyard. And we're about to make a bit of a mess, so I used some chipboard to make sure that I have easy cleanup. This part's pretty fun. All you do is sprinkle the dirt all over the piece. The Mod Podge water solution that we had soaked the toilet paper in is going to really absorb a lot of this dirt, so we just want to make sure that we cover the entire thing. We're going to paint this, and we want to make sure that the entire thing looks like it is dirt terrain. And it looks like dirt, but we need to make sure that this dirt stays in place. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that you could use aquarium rocks in this build, which you totally can, but I had some real rocks from outside, so I took some tacky glue and I just applied the glue and put the rocks where I wanted them to be kind of scattered throughout this little piece. From there, I take the same Mod Podge water solution in this little squirt bottle and I cover the entire piece with this so that we don't have any loose dirt or rock particles on the base. So now this is pretty much soaked with that Mod Podge water solution, and we're going to have to wait several hours. Normally, if it was a nice day out, I'd put this in the sun and it would have it dried up within the hour, maybe even sooner than that, but it's raining and it's cold here today. So I'm actually going to put this in front of a space heater and speed up the process of this drying off. It's all dry, so next thing we're going to do is base coat this with Earth Brown by Anita's. Now this is an acrylic paint that I want to go ahead and get down around the base area of the tree first with a more fine tip brush. What I'm trying to do here is cover the entire base with this brown, but it turned out that this actually wasn't solid enough and I was getting a lot of dirt particles to come up as I was painting. So what I decided to do was take a break from painting and go back to the Mod Podge water solution and just completely cover this thing once again with that solution and then let it dry again before trying to repaint it again. And it turned out to be a good call because this second time trying to paint this brown was a heck of a lot easier than the first time. When I'm doing this type of base coating, I always find that it's again better to use a dabbing motion to get the base coat down so that you don't have any issues with scraping anything off, because the paint is also going to help trap those dirt particles in place. I let that completely dry and then I go ahead and use a black wash in one of these little squirt bottles again, just to darken up some of the areas around the base of the tree and some other areas like around the rocks where I want some shadows, subtle shadows built in. Next thing I want to do is color some of these rocks, so I'm going to paint these a light gray, and I want to make sure that I'm using a fine tip brush so that I don't get any of the unwanted dirt areas and I just get really those little rocks that I'm trying to paint. And one thing I want to mention here too, this is so much fun at this point because I'm adding in all the details that I want to this base, but if you wanted to flock this, or if you had static grass applicator or any other little mushrooms or anything you wanted to do, you can add all those things in. I just chose to keep it simple for this tutorial for you all, and so I just went with the rocks for this one. So this gray color was just for the base coat. I really thought they were way too light and I wanted to darken them up. So again, I used the black wash in the squirt bottle and I went over this several times with it. I really want color variation, and so I went over this with a brown wash as well several times. And now for the final step, we're gonna dry brush some Cafe a Lot by Anita's onto this piece. If you're unfamiliar with dry brushing, it's really good at adding in color variation and adding in highlights. So I'm going to go over the entire base of this with this Cafe a la color. And that includes the sides. I want this to be a complete piece. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoy watching this terrain base for my trees, and I hope you'll stay tuned to see other trees and other Diorama Woods videos coming up.
Vascotoys, action figure dioramas and props.